Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters. How are you doing today? I hope you're having an amazing day so far. What if I told you that the world's first registered nurse wasn't Florence Nightingale in Victorian England, but a brilliant Muslim woman on Arabian battlefields 1,300 years ago? Meet Rufaida Al-Aslamiyya, the forgotten genius who literally created modern healthcare while most of the world was still using leeches and prayers. Her mobile hospitals saved thousands of lives. Her surgical techniques were centuries ahead of their time, and the Prophet Muhammad personally awarded her the same recognition as his greatest warriors. This is her incredible story. Welcome back. Hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into history's most overlooked medical revolution. Today we're diving into the incredible life of a 7th century Muslim woman who literally created the nursing profession as we know it. The 7th century was a time of tremendous change in the Arabian Peninsula. Islam was spreading rapidly, transforming not just religious practices but entire social structures. In this revolutionary period, women played crucial roles that history has often overlooked. Our story takes place in Medina, the heart of the early Islamic community, where a remarkable woman named Rufaida bint Sa'd al-Aslamiyya was about to change medical history forever. Our story begins with Rufaida Al-Aslamiyya, born into the Banu Aslam tribe near Medina in the late 6th century. Her father, Sa'd al-Aslami, was known for his medical knowledge, a skill that was highly valued in pre-Islamic Arabian society, where tribal conflicts were common and medical care was desperately needed. In pre-Islamic Arabia, medical knowledge was typically passed down through families, and women often served as healers within their tribes. But Rufaida was different. She didn't just learn traditional remedies, she innovated, experimented, and developed techniques that were centuries ahead of her time. What set Rufaida apart was her systematic approach to medicine. While others relied solely on traditional remedies, she studied the human body, understood anatomy, and developed surgical techniques that wouldn't be seen in Europe for centuries. She mastered the art of wound care, learned to prepare complex medications from herbs and natural substances, and developed sterilization methods that prevented infection. To understand Rufaida's genius, we need to appreciate what medical care looked like in 7th century Arabia. There were no hospitals, no formal medical schools, no standardized treatments. When someone was injured in battle or fell ill, they relied on tribal healers who used a combination of herbal remedies, prayers, and basic wound care. Rufaida revolutionized this entire system. She didn't just treat patients, she created protocols, established standards, and developed training methods that transformed random acts of healing into a professional medical practice. Her medical knowledge was extraordinary for any era, let alone the 7th century. She understood the importance of cleanliness in preventing infection, a concept that European medicine wouldn't fully grasp until the 19th century. She developed sophisticated surgical instruments, created effective anesthetics from natural substances, and pioneered techniques for treating complex battlefield injuries. But Rufaida's most important innovation wasn't a technique or a treatment. It was the concept of organized medical care. She established what was essentially the world's first mobile hospital, complete with trained staff, medical supplies, and standardized procedures. When Islam arrived in Medina, Rufaida immediately recognized its potential to transform society. The new faith emphasized equality, compassion, and community service, values that aligned perfectly with her vision of medical care. She became one of the earliest converts to Islam and quickly established herself as an essential member of the Muslim community. The Prophet Muhammad didn't just tolerate Rufaida's medical practice, he actively encouraged and supported it. This was revolutionary. In most 7th century societies, women's roles were severely limited, but Islam, as practiced by the Prophet and his companions, recognized and valued women's contributions to society. The Prophet's support gave Rufaida something unprecedented: official recognition as a medical professional. She wasn't just a tribal healer anymore. She was the community's chief medical officer, with authority to organize medical care, train other healthcare workers, and establish medical protocols. Rufaida's greatest innovations came during the early Islamic military campaigns. When Muslim armies prepared for battle, Rufaida would set up what she called a hospital tent, the world's first mobile medical unit. This wasn't just a place to treat the wounded. It was a fully organized medical facility, Her hospital tent included separate areas for different types of injuries, surgical equipment, medications, and supplies for extended care. She organized teams of women who served as nurses, each trained in specific medical skills. Some specialized in wound care, others in surgery assistance, and still others in patient rehabilitation. But here's what made Rufaida truly revolutionary. She didn't just react to medical emergencies, she prepared for them. Before battles, she would analyze likely injury patterns, prepare appropriate treatments, and position her medical team strategically to provide the fastest possible care. During the Battle of Uhud in 625 CE, Rufaida's innovations proved their worth. When the Muslim army suffered heavy casualties, her medical team was ready. They treated hundreds of wounded soldiers, performed complex surgeries, and saved lives that would have been lost without organized medical care. The Prophet Muhammad was so impressed with Rufaida's performance that he awarded her a share of the battle's spoils, the same recognition given to the soldiers who fought. This wasn't just a reward. It was official acknowledgement that medical care was as valuable to the community as military service. What set Rufaida apart wasn't just her medical knowledge. It was her understanding that healthcare needed to be a profession, not just a skill. She developed the world's first nursing education program, training women in medical techniques, patient care, and professional ethics. Her training program covered everything from basic wound care to complex surgical procedures. But she also taught what we now call soft skills: how to communicate with patients, how to provide emotional support, and how to maintain professional standards even in chaotic battlefield conditions. Rufaida established principles that are still fundamental to nursing today. She taught that all patients deserved equal care regardless of their social status, that medical information should be kept confidential, and that healthcare workers had a professional duty to continuously improve their skills. Her students didn't just learn medical techniques, they learned to think like medical professionals. They understood anatomy, pharmacology, and surgical procedures. They could diagnose common conditions, prepare medications, and perform minor surgeries independently. Rufaida's approach to patient care was revolutionary for its time. She understood that healing involved more than just treating physical injuries. It required addressing the patient's emotional and psychological needs as well. She developed what we would now call holistic care. Her patients received not just medical treatment, but also emotional support, spiritual comfort, and rehabilitation services. She understood that recovery was faster when patients felt cared for as complete human beings, not just medical cases. Her hospital tent became a model of compassionate care. Patients were treated with dignity, their families were kept informed, and their recovery was supported through every stage of healing. This approach was so effective that it became the standard for Islamic medical care for centuries. Rufaida also pioneered what we now call preventive medicine. She didn't just treat diseases, she worked to prevent them. She taught communities about hygiene, nutrition, and lifestyle practices that promoted health and prevented illness. The impact of Rufaida's innovations extended far beyond the Arabian Peninsula. As Islam spread across Africa, Asia, and Europe, her medical techniques and professional standards spread with it. The hospitals established in Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba all reflected principles that Rufaida had first developed in her mobile medical units. Her influence on the development of Islamic medicine cannot be overstated. The great medical centers of the Islamic Golden Age, the hospitals of Baghdad, the medical schools of Cairo, the pharmaceutical innovations of Al-Andalus, all built upon foundations that Rufaida had established. European medicine was also influenced by Rufaida's innovations, though often indirectly. When European scholars translated Islamic medical texts during the medieval period, they were learning techniques and principles that traced back to Rufaida's original innovations. The modern nursing profession owes a direct debt to Rufaida Al-Aslamiyya. Florence Nightingale, often credited as the founder of modern nursing, developed many principles that Rufaida had established more than 1,000 years earlier. Today, the World Health Organization recognizes Rufaida Al-Aslamiyya as the first nurse in history. Medical schools around the world study her innovations, and nursing programs teach her principles of patient care and professional ethics. Her influence extends beyond medicine into our understanding of women's capabilities and contributions. Rufaida proved that women could excel in fields requiring technical expertise, leadership skills, and innovative thinking. lessons that remain relevant today. Unfortunately, like many remarkable women in history, Rufaida's story has been largely overlooked by popular accounts of Islamic civilization. While her medical achievements were well documented by contemporary historians, later accounts often focused on male scholars and overlooked women's contributions. This erasure is particularly tragic, because Rufaida's story challenges common misconceptions about women's roles in early Islamic society. She wasn't an exception or an anomaly. She was part of a broader pattern of women's participation in professional and intellectual life during Islam's early centuries. Her story also connects to contemporary discussions about women in healthcare and leadership roles. The barriers she overcame, skepticism about women's technical abilities, the challenge of establishing professional authority, the need to prove herself in male-dominated environments, are issues that women in medicine still confront today. Rufaida's innovations live on in every modern hospital. The concept of organized nursing care, the principles of patient-centered treatment, the idea of medical teams working together, all of these trace back to innovations she developed in 7th century Arabia. Her story reminds us that the Islamic Golden Age wasn't just about famous male scholars in Baghdad or Cordoba. It was also about innovative women like Rufaida, who revolutionized entire fields of human knowledge and practice. More broadly, Rufaida represents the countless women throughout history whose contributions have been forgotten or minimized. By recovering and telling her story, we not only honor her achievements, but also challenge ourselves to look more carefully for the women who have always been part of humanity's progress. Rufaida Al-Aslamiyya's legacy is ultimately one of compassion transforming into profession. She took the basic human instinct to care for the sick and injured and turned it into a systematic, professional practice that has saved millions of lives over the centuries. Her work reminds us that some of humanity's greatest innovations come not from abstract theoretical knowledge, but from practical solutions to real human needs. She saw suffering and created systems to alleviate it. She saw chaos and created order. She saw individual acts of kindness and turned them into professional standards that continue to guide healthcare workers today. What aspect of Rufaida's story inspired you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video if you learned something new today. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about remarkable Islamic figures who changed the world. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, sometimes the most important innovations come from the simple desire to help others heal.